Hi! Today we're going to be talking about unit studies, what they are, why they're better, and how to do them. So a unit study is when you take a topic and build the subjects around it instead of having a separate topic for each subject. So let me give you an example. Let's say you wanted to study prairie life. You might find a book like this and read your way through it, telling your kids, like, what is a covered wagon? And then you could read a book like Little House on the Prairie or Sarah Long and Tall. You could have your students write about who they think is the best character and why. You could study the prairie ecosystem, the plants and animals, maybe even the food chain. And then you could throw in some projects like putting together a bead necklace like Laura does in the book, or making bread. The last time that we read the book, I built kind of a model replica of a covered wagon. So I had a giant box left over from our treadmill and I put it on top of a table, and then I stretched PVC piping over it for the ribs and then put a sheet on over that. And then I gave them fresh bread and molasses while I read to them, just like how Ma did in the book. And so that's like over the top kind of thing that you don't have to feel pressured to do, but it's just an idea and it was something fun for them. But with one book, you've covered reading, writing, social studies, and science. And that's all your basics aside from math, which if you wanted to cover, you could do like quilts. So like quilts use different shapes to put together. And so you could talk about shapes and then like flips and rotations. And that's one of those things that they should cover in basic math. And so this is why unit studies are better. You can get more done with less effort and time. Additionally, it deepens your students' understandings of a subject. The closer you can bring a student to the actual experience, the more they will learn. Consider the difference between reading a passage about the Grand Canyon or looking at pictures and studying what the Grand Canyon is like. Or a VR experience would be even better, but nothing is going to compare to the actual thing. And that's the goal of school, is to build an experience of a subject. Your student will remember more the deeper that experience is. By using a unit study to spend more time studying one subject, you can do just that. It's the difference between a big puddle or a deep swimming hole. And so in school, I'd rather go deep than just cover a bunch of things. And this is what good teachers do, at least until kids get into the older grades. And by that point, they've decided that, different teachers for each subject. But I'm pretty sure that you get more out of those upper grades if those teachers work together to like build units that they could all teach a piece of. The other nice thing about a unit study is that you can get by with less books, which if you're buying books is a big deal. A lot of times curriculums require that you have a book for each subject, and that can really add up. But if you did a unit study, you could probably find the books that you would need at the library. So here's how you make a unit. You pick a topic. Usually you want to pick like social studies or science because it's easier to build off of. And I'll do one of each and plus a bonus random one. So let's say you wanted to study sharks. That's your science. You'll look at what makes a creature a shark, their basic habits and habitat. Then I'm going to want to look at the subjects I can bring in. So my son just told me about a I Survived book about shark attacks. I'd never even heard of this. If you've never read these books, they're like mid-elementary level chapter books, and they cover one interesting history topic. He says it happened in 1917 off the East Coast. So there, I've got reading and social studies. Now I want to bring in something for writing. I decide that we're going to write informational paragraphs about sharks. And then to tie in art, I'd have them do a picture of a shark silhouette. So like as if you're looking at it from underneath it, I'd start with a white circle in the middle and then gradients of blue. And then we could cut out black silhouettes of sharks and paste those on top, so then it would look like sharks are swimming over you. Okay, let's do social studies. How about the explosion of Krakatoa? So Krakatoa was a huge island volcano that exploded in the Dutch East Indies in the 1880s. It was so loud that it shattered people's eardrums, and it affected the weather around the globe for a long time. It was one of the first international news stories. At the time, people were so fascinated, and people in England were really into amateur weather collecting, And their machines were even set off by the explosion. And so they were really excited about that. So the Dutch East Indies now are called Indonesia. And actually, the son of Krakatoa, exploded this year, but it wasn't really covered by the news because there were so many other things going on. But normally it would be at the top of the news. So for social studies, we'd probably talk about this story and maybe even about Indonesia. For my science, we could go with weathers or volcano. There's a great fiction book called 21 Balloons. It's about a teacher who decides to retire setting off on a balloon adventure. He accidentally loses air over the island of Krakatoa, but it turns out that the explosion was just a cover for the fact that the people living there have a huge diamond mine. Now, it's completely fictional, but it's a great companion read, and it's really funny. Students write about what they think flying in a balloon would be like. For art, we did this great one where you took a background picture either from a calendar or like a magazine, and then on a white sheet of paper, we designed our own hot air balloons and a foreground, and we pasted those on top of the picture so it looked like the balloons were like floating by the Eiffel Tower or whatever, and it was really neat. And then if you wanted to throw in math, you could do symmetry, because usually hot air balloons are very symmetrical. Now let's talk and do a random topic. My kids like bubblegum, like a weird amount. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what country it originated from, but a quick Google search would get you that information. So we'd study that story or the place it originated from for social studies. Then for science, I would probably find a make your own bubblegum kit. For reading, I would look up children's books about bubblegum and pick something. For writing, we could write a poem. Like, what kinds of sounds does gum make? Does pop, pop, and snap, and pop? Those words are called onomatopoeias. If you didn't know that, you could just look up, because there's words for everything in the English language, and that's a language arts skill. Or I looked on the library website and I saw that they have a CD of the 25 best bubblegum songs. We could listen to a song and then write about our reaction. For art, you could do a self-portrait and then insert in the back of it, make a little hole, and then insert in that a balloon that's just partially blown up, and so then it would look like they were blowing bubble gum. And then for math, we could learn about probability, like how much money do you have to spend to get the color you want? Well, what if there was 4 colors? What would be the probability of getting a red one? So making a unit study takes a little bit of creativity or just a Google or Pinterest search. You could also buy a unit study or search for a free one. Like when I read the Chronicles of Narnia, I did a search for that for a unit study. Some of the things I didn't do because like I don't enjoy doing crafts with my kids, so I just found other activities. And so like if you've got to an activity that you don't like, you could just skip it or find something else. But in doing a unit study, it's really worth it because of the efficiency for time, cost, and depth of learning. And a unit study is nothing to stress out about.